We bring back friend Mike Sommers, president of the American Petroleum Institute. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate your time very much today. I know you're busy. Your industry is under attack. Can I start really for my benefit, but also the benefit of our viewers? The refinery situation, as I understand it, restrictive environmental policies have closed refineries or diverted fuel away from refineries. Why don't you tell us, because I don't think Mr. Biden's attack on refineries is suggested by the facts.
Well, first of all, your viewers need to know that American refineries are the most technologically advanced refineries in the world. And right now, American refineries are running at about 94% capacity, which is the highest level they have ever run. At the same time, because of the COVID pandemic and because of environmental regulations and incentives from the federal government, there have been 11 refineries that have shut down just in the last 2 years. And what that has meant is that there's about 1 million barrels fewer of capacity happening in the United States in terms of the production of gasoline and diesel. What that has meant is that, at this point, we really need to develop more refineries in this country. Valero, one of the biggest refineries in the United States, and ExxonMobil are actually right now expanding refineries in Texas. Both of them are going to put about 300,000 new barrels of refining capacity on the market. So we're excited to get those on as quickly as possible because we need it. But unfortunately, we have a lot of these environmental regulations and incentives from the federal government have meant that about a third of the 11 refineries that have shut down because of those environmental regulations and because of incentives for them to switch from refining fuel to refining other feedstocks.
Other feedstocks being what? Ethanol, diesel? How do you define other feedstocks?
Other feedstocks could include cooking oil, for example. So 2 of those refineries are on the West Coast. And those 2 refineries, because of an incentive program called a low carbon fuel standard in the state of California, have switched their feedstock from crude oil to other kinds of products. And what that has meant is that doesn't mean you're replacing one barrel of oil being refined with 1 barrel of cooking oil being refined. Those refineries are actually producing only 10% of what they previously produced. And that's because of a perverse incentive that is in place in the state of California. What the Biden administration wants to do is they want to take that failed California policy and make it national. And that would be a disaster for the American people.
Walk me through just briefly, Mike. This is so important stuff. Quote unquote, the perverse incentive in California, which Biden might want to take nationwide. What is that perverse incentive?
Yeah, so they basically give you a tax credit if you refine these other kinds of products.
Got it.
Those products are not economic to refine right now were it not for that tax incentive. So to comply with the new standards in the state of California, a number of these companies have changed how those refineries are tooled. And that has led to less production of those products in the state of California. And that's one of the big problems that we're having right now in terms of this fuel supply.
So, Mike Sommers, if I were worried about $5 a gallon gasoline, I would want to put more gasoline on the market. I would want to oversupply, not undersupply. Listening to you, they're providing incentives and environmental rules that are stopping that. We're still short of gasoline. We're short of refineries, and they're not. They're saying don't bother with gasoline. Do this. Do these other fuels. I mean, this is the part I don't get, and I'm not sure people understand this clearly.
Yeah, what they've basically done is they're trying to put in place a system where they would put incentives in place to switch, which are actually making the problem much, much worse in terms of the supply that we have. API actually put out just this week a plan that would address consumer costs at the pump and ensure that we're energy independent again. And we put that out, and you can find it at api.org. It's called our 10 in 22 plan.
So new EPA-related rules basically have shut down a couple refineries in the past year or two. Is that the idea?
Yeah, unfortunately, these new regulatory efforts, which they're really doubling down on, and then new tax incentives, which they're trying to take nationwide, have really made this system completely untenable.
And how many new pipelines have been permitted and built in the last 2 years?
Well, unfortunately, that is another place where this administration has continued to really put their foot on the throat of American production. They've figured out that the best way to cut down on American production is actually by really putting their foot on the hose in the middle of where the production happens and where the products are actually refined. And that's the pipeline system in the United States. As you know, there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pipelines already in this country, but at the same time, we need more pipeline capacity because the production in the United States continues to grow. In fact, just this month, the United States hit again that magic 12 million barrels of oil produced in the United States every single day. Pre-pandemic, we were at 13 million. Mm-hmm. We're on our way back up to that number, and we're going to need it for decades and decades to come.
If it's permitted. If it's permitted, that's exactly my biggest concern. I remember Energy Department, the Energy Information Administration, back in 2019 suggested that over the next couple of years we'd be at 15 million barrels a day. We're still 1 million barrels short of where we were pre-pandemic, and the trend line, here in 2022 we should be at least 14 million barrels a day. So I'm just saying, Mike Sommers, we are undersupplied oil, but we are undersupplied gasoline as well. And let me just add, it sounds like we're undersupplied refineries. And it kind of sounds like the incentives are all wrong to solve this. I'll give you the last word.
Well, you're right. In fact, unfortunately, Secretary Granholm went on one of your rival networks here just this week and basically said that we need to produce more today, but we don't want any more production 5 to 10 years from now. As you and I both know, it costs billions of dollars to build these sophisticated refineries. Who's going to make that investment if the federal government is saying that we don't want that production 5 to 10 years from now? It's really unfathomable what they're doing.
There may not be a fossil fuel industry if you leave it up to the current administration. You're exactly right. The only quibble I have with you is we have no rival networks. That's all. Mike Sommers, American Petroleum Institute, you're the best of the best. Thank you for helping us out.